Ali MacGraw was once the emblem of Hollywood's purest innocence. Her performance in Love Story didn't just define a generation, it shattered box office records and turned her into an instant icon. Yet, the story unfolding behind the cameras was far darker than any tragic role she ever played. At the absolute peak of her fame, MacGraw found herself irresistibly drawn into the powerful orbit of Steve McQueen, a man the world worshipped as the King of Cool. Their romance ignited like a storybook legend, only to spiral into years of possessive jealousy, suffocating control, devastating heartbreak. Decades later, MacGraw is finally looking back on the relationship that both captivated the world and nearly destroyed her, offering revelations that continue to shock even the most dedicated fans of classic cinema. Ali MacGraw's journey to stardom began a world away from the glamorous red carpets of Los Angeles. Born in Bedford Village, New York, her childhood was a tense landscape of conflict and instability. Her father's battle with alcoholism and her parents' ceaseless fighting left her with crippling struggles with self-confidence from a tender age. Searching for any kind of escape, she threw herself into modeling. Under the discerning eye of legendary editor Diana Vreeland, she swiftly broke into the cutthroat world of high fashion, a move that soon opened the doors to film. Her first major screen role was in the 1969 hit romantic comedy Goodbye Columbus. The film's success and MacGraw's vibrant performance immediately drew the attention of Hollywood's power players. It was during this pivotal moment that she met Robert Evans, the wildly successful producer and then head of production at Paramount Pictures. Evans saw something electrifying in the young actress and made the career-defining decision to cast her in a tearjerker called Love Story. When it was released in 1970, the film wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural earthquake. Its heartbreaking tagline, "Love means never having to say you're sorry," became a global catchphrase, and the movie rocketed past $100 million at the worldwide box office. MacGraw playing Jenny, the doomed, quick-witted student who stole Ryan O'Neal's heart, was instantly cemented as one of the most sought-after leading ladies of the entire decade. Off-screen, her relationship with Evans quickly turned into a passionate Hollywood romance. They married in 1969 and welcomed their only child, Joshua, in 1971. Professionally, personally, and domestically, it seemed as if Ali MacGraw had it all: a soaring career, a powerful, devoted husband, and the joy of motherhood. But destiny, and a role secured by Evans himself, was about to rip her life in a dramatically new direction. By 1972, Hollywood was buzzing about The Getaway, a tense action film directed by Sam Peckinpah and starring the industry's biggest star, Steve McQueen. In a move that would upend his own life, Robert Evans secured the role of McQueen's wife for MacGraw. This decision would irrevocably change her life forever. Initially, MacGraw hesitated, claiming she worried about leaving her young son. But, as she later confessed in her candid 1991 memoir, Moving Pictures, the true, deeper reason was a clear sense of dread. She knew the danger of working so intimately with McQueen. "I knew I was going to get in some serious trouble with Steve," she admitted, and she was terrifyingly right. When Ali MacGraw arrived on the set of The Getaway in 1972, she was a married woman, and Steve McQueen, 12 years her senior, was already a global legend. McQueen carried the impenetrable aura of a man who had stared down every challenge life threw at him. From a brutally troubled childhood marked by abandonment to his ascent as Hollywood's ultimate anti-hero, he was the living embodiment of danger, rebellion, and raw charisma. To audiences, he was the king of cool, effortlessly blending his passions for high-speed motorcycles and race cars into his on-screen persona. To MacGraw, he was a magnetic force, impossible to resist. Their chemistry was undeniable from the jump. MacGraw would later describe it simply as chemical, explaining that when McQueen walked into a room, men, women, and children alike would turn their heads. He had a presence that utterly consumed everything around him. MacGraw, despite her marriage to Evans, was immediately swept up in his volatile world. Their affair ignited shortly after filming began in Texas, and it instantly became the most scandalous, talked-about romance in all of Hollywood. The public frenzy around their passion only served to boost interest in The Getaway, which became a box office sensation. But while the press and fans reveled in the on-screen and off-screen heat, The personal consequences were dire. By the end of 1972, MacGraw had filed for divorce from Evans, a scandal that sent shockwaves through the industry. Evans, the man who had given her the career-making role, was utterly blindsided by the betrayal. In July 1973, Ali MacGraw and Steve McQueen were married. Their union possessed all the glamour of a Hollywood fairy tale, but the reality was rapidly proving to be anything but romantic. McQueen immediately insisted MacGraw sign a prenuptial agreement, guaranteeing she would not seek a dime in the event of divorce. More crushing, however, was his demand that she abandon her acting career entirely. At the absolute height of her fame, MacGraw walked away from Hollywood to meet his expectations. She later admitted that she consented out of an overriding fear of losing him, even though it meant silencing her own formidable ambitions. Initially, their married life in Malibu seemed like a perfect paradise. Ali MacGraw and Steve McQueen settled into a secluded beach house, hosting intimate barbecues and enjoying quiet walks on the sand. To the outside world, they were the ultimate glamorous Hollywood power couple living the dream. But behind closed doors, deep fissures were already beginning to appear. McQueen carried profound emotional scars from his devastating childhood. Abandoned by his father and later sent away by his mother, he grew up fiercely distrustful, particularly of women. Those intense insecurities bled into his marriage. MacGraw recalled that his jealousy was an unyielding constant, flaring up if she so much as glanced at another man. Yet, in a brutal paradox, McQueen himself openly flirted with other women and was rumored to have multiple affairs throughout their marriage. The most painful sacrifice for MacGraw was relinquishing her career. McQueen, then the highest-paid actor in the world, simply told her he didn't want a working wife. "He was the biggest movie star in the world, and he didn't want me to work," she confessed years later. Driven by love and a consuming fear of his abandonment, she walked away from Hollywood. Instead of reading new scripts and attending premieres, she became a full-time homemaker, raising her son Josh while devotedly catering to McQueen's every need. In her memoir, she admitted to playing cook, cleaning lady, simple woman to the hilt. The isolation began to weigh on her soul. Though she deeply adored McQueen, his overwhelming need for control made her feel increasingly trapped. His own substance abuse only intensified the situation. He was known for heavy drinking and drug use, a destructive pattern that led to MacGraw herself beginning to struggle with alcoholism. What had begun as a blindingly passionate romance slowly decayed into a relationship clouded by suspicion, anger, and deep, unspoken resentment. By the mid-1970s, the fairy tale had completely unraveled. Their home, once a sanctuary, was now a place of unbearable tension and oppressive silence. MacGraw later reflected that she was terrified of being abandoned if she ever dared to speak her mind. So, instead of standing up for her own selfhood, she chose silence and suffered. By 1976, the devastating strain of Ali MacGraw and Steve McQueen's marriage could no longer be hidden. On magazine covers and movie posters, McQueen was still Hollywood's granite tough guy, the man who made millions dream of freedom in Bullet or The Great Escape. But at home, the reality was anything but heroic. His severe addictions had tightened their grip. He frequently disappeared into nights of drinking, drugs, and reckless carousing, returning home volatile, withdrawn, or overwhelmingly suspicious. For MacGraw, who had already surrendered her entire professional life to meet his demands, the loneliness became suffocating. She began drinking more heavily herself, desperately seeking relief but only sinking deeper into a private despair. The endless rumors of McQueen's infidelities, tales of flings with other women that spread like wildfire through Hollywood circles, gnawed at her. Initially, she clung to denial, trying to convince herself that the magnetic man she once adored was still there, buried beneath the anger and chaos. But soon, the whispers were too persistent to ignore. The humiliation was crushing. Feeling desperately unwanted and craving some measure of human comfort, she admitted years later that she too began seeking companionship outside the marriage. What was once a passionate union had completely devolved into a cyclical nightmare of betrayal and bitterness, each wound cutting deeper than the last. By 1977, MacGraw's patience had finally run out. She told McQueen she wanted to return to acting, to reclaim the vibrant career she had cast aside at its very peak. Her confession wasn't just a desire for work, it was a powerful declaration of her own selfhood after years of suppression. McQueen's reaction was cold and utterly final. According to biographer Mark Elliott, he told her, "In that case, we are filing for divorce." Those cold, simple words shattered whatever illusion remained. They confirmed her deepest fear that her voice and her choices had never truly mattered to him. Determined to stand on her own 2 feet again, MacGraw accepted a role in Convoy, directed by Sam Peckinpah. The decision made reconciliation impossible. Though they briefly attempted to patch things up, all trust had already evaporated into thin air. In 1978, after 5 years defined as much by control and suffocating jealousy as by passion, the divorce was finalized. Only 2 years later, tragedy struck the Hollywood community. In 1980, at the age of 50, Steve McQueen died from pleural mesothelioma, a rare cancer caused by asbestos exposure. His illness shocked the film industry and devastated those closest to him. For MacGraw, the grief was complex and tangled. Despite the betrayals, the anger, and the crushing pain, she had loved him profoundly. Looking back decades later, she offered a heartbreaking acknowledgement of the life they could never have. "I wish we had both grown old sober." A dream forever lost to addiction, stubborn pride, and an untimely death. When Steve McQueen died in November 1980, Ali MacGraw was only 41 years old, a widow of sorts, even though their marriage had long been over. His sudden passing shook her to the core. For years she had lived in fear of abandonment, yet nothing could have prepared her for the finality of death. Despite their bitter breakup, she admitted she had loved him deeply, and his loss left a massive, haunting void. The pain of what they had endured and what they had forever lost only intensified her own escalating dependence on alcohol. Professionally, she desperately tried to move forward, taking on new projects like the film Convoy and later a 14-episode arc in the primetime soap opera Dynasty in 1984. But the dazzling sparkle of her earlier stardom was gone. Hollywood had moved on, and MacGraw found herself struggling against being typecast or simply overlooked. More critically, she no longer possessed the fighting energy required to secure her place in an industry that had once crowned her its brightest new star. By the early 1990s, her personal struggles reached a destructive breaking point. Alcohol, once a temporary comfort, had become a permanent cage. Realizing she was on a clear, destructive path, MacGraw entered treatment at the legendary Betty Ford Center. There, she began the arduous process of recovery, bravely confronting not only her addiction, but also the deep emotional scars left by her turbulent marriages, her lost career, and her tumultuous years with McQueen. It was a true turning point, the one that finally allowed her to reclaim her life after decades of relentless turmoil. In 1991, she published her honest and unflinching memoir, Moving Pictures, an autobiography. The book laid bare her painful childhood, her tumultuous relationships, and the devastating cost of fame. It became an instant bestseller, deeply resonating with readers who saw in her story a reflection of their own hidden battles with love, loss, and addiction. By 1994, she made the ultimate choice, leaving Hollywood entirely and moving to Santa Fe, New Mexico. She traded the chaotic intensity of film sets for quiet, measured days filled with painting, peaceful gardening, and spiritual practice. It was there, far from the entertainment industry's glare, that Ali MacGraw finally began to heal. In Santa Fe, Ali MacGraw found the profound peace that had eluded her for decades. Away from the cameras and the intense spotlight, she committed herself to sobriety, wellness, and simple living. She practices yoga and meditation daily, lovingly cultivates her garden, and surrounds herself with animals. After years of emotional chaos, she discovered that true healing required solitude and stillness. She has now been sober for over 30 years, a hard-won milestone she once believed impossible. "I used to rewrite the past, fantasize about the future," she reflected. "But now I believe in living fully to the very best of my ability. I feel very blessed." MacGraw never remarried, choosing instead to focus on the relentless journey of self-discovery. Her enduring friendships became her essential anchors, including a heartwarming reconnection with her love story co-star Ryan O'Neal, with whom she reunited on stage in 2016 for a touring production of Love Letters. Their easy, comfortable chemistry reminded audiences of the on-screen magic that had once made them household names. But for MacGraw, it was simply a sweet reminder that some bonds endure, even as life violently changes. She also redirected her creative energy into new, impactful passions. Partnering with Ibu, a fashion collective that collaborates with female artisans around the world, she helped develop clothing lines that celebrate craftsmanship and empower women. For a woman who once gave up her entire career to fit into someone else's world, this work represents a final chance to define her own path, one built on powerful independence rather than painful sacrifice. Even now at 85, she continues to speak candidly about her past. She has never denied Steve McQueen's magnetic pull, describing him as chemical, and admitting she knew trouble was inevitable the very moment they met. But she also refuses to romanticize the pain that came after. "There were wonderful days and dreadful days," she has said. "I'm not a victim in any way. There were many times that were just wonderful, and there were many times that were just ghastly." Her unflinching honesty has given her story a resonance that extends far beyond Hollywood gossip. Ali MacGraw is no longer just the vibrant young woman from Love Story. She is a survivor who navigated fame, crushing heartbreak, addiction, and loss, and emerged with the unshakable strength to finally tell her own truth. Ali MacGraw's memories of Steve McQueen are filled with a complicated mix of deep love and unimaginable pain, a powerful reminder that even the most glamorous romances can hide unbearable struggles. What do you think of her courage in revealing these truths after so many years? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.